Welcome back to the weekend with Anthony Opperman. Believe it or not, baseball time back at the Diamond. Obviously, it's not the Flying Squirrels, but the VCU Rams kicked off their season yesterday, welcoming in Binghamton, continuing the season through the weekend, including today. And here to talk a little bit about the Rams' upcoming baseball season, which has already got underway, VCU baseball head coach Paul Keyes. And Coach, first and foremost, thank you for your time. Really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me on. And, like you said, we got going last week out in California with a 5-game set, 3 with Long Beach, and then, 2 with Pepperdine. And the results weren't what we were looking for, but, I think the process and how we played was exciting for us and the players.
You mentioned that 1-4 throughout the first 5 games of that trip through California. Talk a bit, though, about the logic in scheduling Long Beach and Pepperdine right out of the gate, because, both of those programs have been good for a while. Long Beach has produced a number of major leaguers, Pepperdine as well, and, both tough challenges right out of the gate.
Yeah, I think for us, we're always going to set up early in the season to get us in, regional-type play, whether it's the venue we're going to, an SEC venue or a Big 12 venue. This was a California trip we try to do once out every 4 years. Last time we went out and played San Diego for a 4-game set and faced some pro guys there. And, Long Beach is sort of very, very similar to where we've been, with a lot of regionals in the past. And they've been just okay the last couple of years. They're sort of a new coach, and they're sort of retooling a little bit, and Pepperdine's sort of been the same way. So we felt like it was very good storied programs that you get good press to go play, and they play a certain style and play big parks like the Diamond. Blair Field plays that way, and so does Pepperdine. And we played really well. The scheme was to get out there, and we won Friday night in dramatic fashion with 4 in the ninth, and throwing their guy out at the plate to end the game. And then we come back and jumped on them early and couldn't hold on and lost a 1-runner on Saturday. And then Sunday, same type of thing. We had some base running mistakes early, and we really outplayed Long Beach for all 3 games. And it was a shame that we came out 1-2. Then we went over to Pepperdine, who had a very good club. They had 5 freshmen in the lineup. 4 of them were drafted out of high school, and played pretty well till about the final 13 innings of that series, and lost 6-1. And then it was a bad taste game on Wednesday, losing 11-2. But both programs that we can learn from. Our guys can sort of see the style of play that they both play, and we play the similar style, and so it could be a good experience for us down the road, even though we went 1-4.
You're joined by head VCU baseball coach Paul Keyes here on the weekend. And, Coach, it wasn't just a learning experience on the field for the guys, but a learning experience off the field as well. Saw on the website you guys had a chance to go over to Angels Stadium, take a tour of Angels Stadium, and meet with VCU alum and current Angels GM Jerry DiPoto. Just talk about that experience as a whole and what the guys were able to maybe learn from that a little bit.
Yeah, I think for us, and I'd met with Jerry about a month prior when I went out for our convention, and we talked about, that he was going to talk. I didn't know he was going to talk for 2.5 hours in the clubhouse, but Jerry's Jerry. He's where he is because he's very energetic. He's very knowledgeable about the history of the game and very intelligent. And I'm really proud of where he is from. He was one of our first recruits when I was here as an assistant, and we talked about that a little bit. It was really neat for our guys to listen to him talk with the passion that he has for just a day-to-day discipline. He talked about the Pujols signing. He talked about the C.J. Wilson signing. He talked about his junior year here, where he had a great sophomore year and then struggled a little bit with the draft pressures and didn't have a great year. And we've got a couple guys who are probably going to go through that a little bit this year, so it was good to hear that for them. He just talked about, the passion for baseball and the history, and he told a story about when he was in the running for the Seattle GM job, and they had pictures of all these guys from 1903 all the way through, and one of the owners asked him to name those guys, and he went through verbatim of all the guys on the wall. It was just really neat for our guys, and we actually had study hall scheduled at 6 o'clock, and he went right through that, so it was a lot better than the stock study hall we had. I think our guys were educated in a different light, so it was really exciting for those kids.
I have to imagine, too, I mean, not everybody's going to be able to go play Major League Baseball in the VCU locker room. So to be able to maybe see an alum who's had some success on the business side of baseball and getting some insight to the business side of sports, I imagine that's got to be really beneficial for their education overall.
Yeah, I think it was great for them, and I think in general, just for them in any field when they leave VCU, of what it takes to be successful.
Again, joined by VCU head baseball coach Paul Keys here on the weekend with Anthony Opperman. Hey, Coach, we were talking before this interview about being at programs like a Long Beach and a Pepperdine and some of the big league guys that gravitate toward those programs as they get ready to head to spring training. Imagine that was pretty good for you guys to be able to see that as well.
Yeah, I think, obviously being a stadium with, where a lot of Long Beach players have played and a lot of Pepperdine players play, and just to be in that setting, it's pretty great for them. And obviously it's designed to help our recruiting, but really help our guys to sort of get in those venues and understand the game and understand that, hey, you're playing against Long Beach. And I think that's half the battle when our guys went out is to, understand there's not a big difference between us and them. I think – in general, I think from administration on down, I think, we've got some really quality players here, and we always have, and to go out there and compete. And, that's why we felt a little bad on Sunday letting games get away, that, if you get out of there with a 3-game sweep of Long Beach, everybody's jumping through the roof. Back at VCU, and I think they're jumping through the roof as far as the media is concerned in the national media outlets with college baseball. But, to play well was good. Like I said, the negative part was finishing not strong against Pepperdine, but that's 5 games in 6 days and a long trip for us. So, it was just a great opportunity for our guys to get out there and compete.
How was Pepperdine? I've heard amazing things about that campus and the setting and where it's at.
You come through the gorge and, you're driving through and, we were driving along and a couple guys said, hey, there's a couple links. And, then you come over the crest and you see the beach and all of a sudden there's 3 deers that come right in the middle of the campus. Sort of like it was scripted. And, a couple of our hunters said, Coach, we don't need meal money today. We'll just take a couple of those out for dinner. And, pretty humorous. And to get out there and work out, a little story, we got out and we worked out, and who's throwing in the outfield but Ryan Braun, and so some of the guys got to meet him, and with everything's going on with him, it was pretty interesting, and he talked to the guys. That was great, that he took his time to do that, and it's just a great venue. It's not many places you can play where you look through the outfield fence. They have one section of fence through their padded wall where you can see the ocean. It's just a great atmosphere, and and they really played well. You got to give Pepperdine a lot of credit. They just beat Oklahoma 2 out of 3. And then they played just as well. We were in a 1-1 game going in the 5th in game 1, and they had put a 5 spot on us and won 6-1. And then the Wednesday game we just got behind early, and but it was great because we can teach off them a little bit, and that's one reason we try to play teams that play our style, that play a big park, so we can teach off that as the season goes.
And joined by VCU head baseball coach Paul Keys here on the weekend with Anthony Opperman. Coach, you look around VCU, and in all aspects of the university, things are continuing to improve and grow, and it's certainly no exception in the athletic department either. What's your vision for the VCU baseball program? Where do you see this program growing more as we get into the future?
Yeah, one thing, we've got a very storied history with, a lot of people in the big leagues, a lot of championships. I know one stretch, I think we – from like 97 through 2010, I think we, 10 regionals, a lot of championships, always in the top part of a very competitive CAA, and, and going to regionals and beating Texas. And, we were the only team ever to beat LSU on Championship Sunday in 2001 in Alex Box Stadium with Coach Burtman coaching. So a lot of storied history there, and with that comes, trying to maintain that. I think when we had the changeover, when you guys came in, when the Squirrels came in, and we had that transition when the Braves were leaving, it was tough. We had about 2 or 3 years of tough recruiting because nobody knew if the stadium was going to be here. We didn't know who was going to be the tenant, and when you walk into somebody's house and the first question is, Coach, where are you going to play in practice? It's hard to sign those guys. So we had a couple down years, but I think we turned that corner, obviously, with the Squirrels coming in and being a great partner. I think that's really helped us out. Obviously, like VCU said, VCU's campus is such an easier sell now than it used to be. You know, we always sold baseball. Now we can sell campus. We can sell, just the vibrant community around the campus, where before we just had to sort of sell our expertise and what we could do for you on the baseball. And now you're talking about a great education. You're talking about, great dorms, the great atmosphere, obviously with basketball doing real well. And, we're just trying to keep getting better, year in and year out. And, we've had a couple down years, but I think we've turned that corner. I think we're ready to really start moving forward.
Coach, before I let you go, just expectations for the season and maybe some of the guys that you're looking to step up as leaders on this club for this year.
Yeah, I think we've got our pitching staff is very good, especially our starting pitching with Kyle Haynes and Ryan Farah and Seth Cutler-Volts and Kyle Pelchi. They threw real well. We've got some guys, some cleaning up to do in the bullpen. Blake Hauser is coming into a closer role, and he did a pretty good job this weekend, got a save, and then did a pretty good job on the Pepperdine last game with a couple good innings. So I think pitching's a strength. I think our defense goes along, obviously, with pitching. I think that's going to be a strength for us. And then the really thing that hurt us this weekend is we just got to do a better job of scoring runners when we need to, either in the execution phase or just driving them in with 2 outs. We left 50 runners on in 4 games, and I think that really hurt us. But on the offensive end, really like the middle of our lineup with Joey Kuzis, Player of the Week, sophomore. He's going to be a very good offensive player for us. Brent McIonis is hitting like 380, who's coming back off an injury. So we've got some guys in the middle that can swing a little bit. We got to keep working with our table setter guys on the top and the bottom of the order to be a little bit more offensive as far as the running game's concerned. I think we had some opportunities to run this weekend and didn't do a very good job with it, and I think that will, especially with the new bats that we're dealing with for a second year, we've got to be able to run the bases better and take advantage when it's running counts and on dirt balls. But I think we'll do that. But the prospects look pretty good. I think once again, the pieces are there. They just have to do it when it's game time. And we played extremely well, like I said, against Long Beach, and could have swept them if we'd have just had a couple more quality at bats in the right situation. So hopefully they'll learn from that and do a better job this weekend.
Coach, great to see baseball back here at the Diamond. Always a pleasure being able to catch up with you, and best of luck moving forward, and hopefully get a chance to chat again a couple more times.
All right, Op, thanks.
And that's VCU head baseball coach Paul Keyes join us here on The Weekend with Anthony Opperman. Stay tuned. Got more coming up.
The Weekend with Anthony Opperman continues next on Sports Radio 910.